fact, the Ajafon person who set up the compound in Belmont in Trinidad, he came in the 1860s. So, you know, pretty late in the whole transportation of Africans to the Caribbean. We don't know under what circumstances, whether he came as a soldier, because remember that the British and French were recruiting
those
Africans,
freed from continuing trading ships
for the West India regiments and so on. So we don't quite know how they came. So I had to do a lot of reading of history, and I have enjoyed it. I mean, one has learned so much about aspects of Caribbean history which, you know, a lot of people don't know about. And history becomes more real when, in the oral research now, when you go around and you meet people, do the field work, you see, you know, you see maybe some artifacts that they say, my grandfather brought this Quran or this bowl or this musical instrument, and so you're collecting data, you know, a dance, and it's me one, so that I miss a lot of things. And in those days we didn't have video. When I was doing this field work, we didn't have video. I just had a camera, and then sometimes the people would be so enthusiastic because these were elderly people, and sometimes they were so glad that somebody was as we say in Trinidad, paying their mind.
But listen now, a lot of this is based on oral history.
Yes.
The Caribbean has changed.
Yes.
If someone were to do this research now in our Caribbean, would this be possible? Would a researcher now be able to have the same kinds of sources that you have?
Well,
where is the memory now?
Well, those old people that I interviewed are all dead.
Yes.
But remember that, you know, history and heritage is something that is passed on consciously or unconsciously and unconsciously. And these persons had relatives, you know, had descendants, had friends. So, you know, there are there are sort of pools of memory around. And through publishing this book in 1991, even here in Jamaica, people, Trinidadians would come to me or Grenadians would come to me and tell me, you know, I read in your book so, and this is what we used to do when we were growing up. Because certain rituals and so on. Sometimes you'd go to a house and you see a little table in the corner and it has a bowl with water and a stone or something in it. And that is an African retention. So but you have to know what it is you're looking for.
Exactly.
Of course, well, I was helped in this by not only by reading not only history but ethnography of Africa, but also because I taught for 3 years in Nigeria.
Okay, so that is, I was going to go there now, because you talk about gathering sources in the Caribbean, whether it's through documentation, archives, oral history. Were you able to recognize Africa in the Caribbean because you traveled through Africa?
Certainly, definitely yes, definitely yes. And because I would see certain things in Nigeria, and I would say, you know, either we do it like this, I didn't know that they did it here, that means that we got it from here, or I would say we do something different, you know. For instance, when I first went to Nigeria, I was staying at a Nigerian friend's home, and the father, he had more than one wife, so he would come to the home where I was staying with one of his wives. And he said to me one day, he said, he would call, you are European, he says. That's how they see westernized
how did that
black
make you
person.
feel? Because you don't see yourself like that.
Yes,
in
you
the
don't.
Caribbean.
So, you know, it sort of.
You react.
Yes. He said, you are European. He said, you comb your hair every day. this was surprising to me. Of course, I comb my hair every day. But by that time, I realized that Nigerian women did not comb their hair every day because they had their forms of hairstyling meant that it was done. If it was cornrow or if it was threaded
or the Nubian knots, the sort of knots.
Yes. That these were styles that lasted for you know, whether a week or whatever. So he saw in me a pattern of behavior that was alien. You see? So these are things now that you, in other words, you begin to see yourself through other people's eyes. Now, for instance, there in Nigeria, if I am meeting a person who is older than myself, I have to dip, I have to curtsy, and so on. And, you know, when I talk to the Kumina people, they talk about kochi. You know, you have to curtsy, you curtsy to the drums, you curtsy. You know, so this matter of curtsying or prostrating yourself, men have to lie down flat on the ground in front of somebody who is older and so on. So and it doesn't have to do with your class. Class was not as important as age. And so on. So you begin to see how, you know, this society places a different emphasis on, there's age, there's class, there's, well, in Africa, you don't not really concern with color, you know, business with that. But so our color consciousness is because of that plantation exposure. We have, you know, and of course in the United States it's even more extreme. Well, you know, this preoccupation.
But maybe this is changing though, because I know I've been to Senegal and other parts of Africa where I see women bleaching. So I think globalization has in fact had an impact on culture and people's behavior. But I wanted to push that about Creole a little bit more, because I have noticed that several people, having been to Africa and come back to the Caribbean, reformulate their ideas and their thinking about creolization in the Brathwaitean sense. And I wondered if you still, do you, I suppose, see the Caribbean as Creole or as African?
Well, I would say the Caribbean is more Creole than African. But it is also African. It's also African. And this is what, you know, this has been the burden of my research, has been to uncover what precisely it is, you know, to my mind, it is no longer sufficient to say we are African descendants, we are the sons, we are the Guineas, other sons. It is no longer, it's sufficient to make that blanket statement. We must know what food, if it is ackee, how you eat ackee, who eats ackee, you know, how ackee is cooked, you know, in different places, because the ackee comes from parts of West Africa. But say among the Yoruba, they eat it raw. They eat it like a fruit. But among the Dahomians, they cook it with meat. So now when we come here and we get all the saltfish, the salted fish from Nova Scotia, and you found another, we turn it into...
Saltfish that my mother said could shingaroo.
The hard thing. So, you know, so you begin, I want to be precise about what particular aspect, like on the cover of the book that's to come out.
The new edition.
The new edition. I have, the artist has portrayed a hat. Now that is the hat of a carnival masquerade in Trinidad.
So that was a deliberate choice.
Yes, well, that hat comes from Nigeria, among certain religious groups in the south of Nigeria.
Because we see the headdress called gele as typifying Nigerian headdress. And of course, there are so many others.
So, many.
But I wanted to read you something, because the late Professor Rex Nettleford did the forward to the first edition. And he said something. He said, and I'm quoting, "The peoples of the Caribbean have long been curious about where they come from and how they came to be where they are," end of quote. So my question is, do you get the sense that there is an urgency for Trinidadians, or in fact Jamaicans, because you have lived here for a long time, to connect with that cultural reservoir of which the book speaks?
Yes and no. In the 70s, the interest in Africa was very strong. That whole Black Power movement was very strong, and then of course, you know, here the Rastafarians, you know, have a very strong Africa consciousness. It has gone into their music, and that music has diffused the idea of Africa to the general population. So there are groups of people who have a strong interest in Africa. In Trinidad, the interest in Africa is, I would say, particularly strong because of the ethnic composition of the population.
And so it's stronger where other ethnic groups.
Well, because of the competition, there's here in Jamaica, there is not much of a competition because the
over
population,
90% yes,
yes, right. Same thing like Haiti.
Right.
So but in Trinidad, because there is economic and other competition with other ethnicities, the interest in Africa is particularly strong, and also because the Yoruba religion, which in Trinidad is now called Orisha, has persisted. And I would dare say that my work on the Yoruba language and on the Yoruba religion has given an impetus and a status and a validation to the cultural circles in Trinidad who either adhere to the Orisha religion or who are influenced by it. Because that influence of the Orisha religion is not only on a religious plane, but also in terms of religious ideas, in terms of iconography. You know, iconography. So artists are interested in it. Intellectuals are interested in probing the genuine connections with Africa. And writers have some of their work I can see is draws on the work that I have done, and even in the carnival that I'm missing at this moment.
You have said that
yes, some of the music, some of the songs, some of the calypsos that are now being fashioned are drawing on the Orisha chants, and so on, so that my work has a living resonance.
Yes. So more resonance in Trinidad and Tobago than in Jamaica. I'm not talking about the book necessarily, but the phenomenon of whether de-Africanization or a search for connection.
Well,
discontinuity and discontinuity.
Yes. I mean, Africa itself is not standing steady.
Absolutely.
In one cultural space. I mean, Africa is as modern in some parts of it as
quite traditional in others.
Yes. You see, so that Africa is not standing still culturally, and our society, again, because of distance from Africa, the difficulty of links, transport links. I mean, during the slave trade time, they could bring us easily, but now it's no longer commercially viable to maintain those links.
If there's a will, Maureen, is there the will for that? For building that bridge?
I think there is and there isn't. What happens is that the issue of Africa and of our heritage, our ancestral heritage, is an issue that goes in cycles. There are times when there are moments in the Caribbean when it is important, and there are other moments when, oh, let's leave that aside and just look forward. But of course, I mean, you go to Europe, you go, you go to Asia, and you are dealing with people who have an understanding of where they're coming
Absolutely.
from. And so it is very annoying in a sense sometimes, and frustrating to realize that our people, some of them are content.
Many of them. I would even push it to say many of them.
Some of them
from where I sit.
are content to be just I am I.
Yes.
I am not I am my. I am standing on the shoulders of my ancestors, and for me to appreciate the advantages that I have now here in this 21st century, in this geographical space, for me to appreciate that, I must be sensitive every time I come on this campus that this was a sugar estate.
Absolutely, yes.
That here is a great house, there is the bookkeeper's house, there is the aqueduct. It means something. Who built that aqueduct?
That's right.
Who built that aqueduct?
Yes. And whose bones?
Whose bones we are walking over.
So then it
and why are the ackee trees in certain places?
Certain clusters
around.
In certain places.
That gives you a fuller understanding of yourself and what your generation has achieved, and what the people who have gone before you have had to undergo.
And what groundwork.
Groundwork.
And it's not just the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies, or in fact KVA or St. Augustine, because there is a move now for universities in other parts of the world, in North America, in the UK, to find, well, not the UK, but in North America, to find out what was here before this university was built. Emory had a conference on university and slavery, So, but I have two more questions for you. We're just getting into it, but anyway, you know how it goes. Now, in the preface of the 1991 version of this book, you asked, what is Africa to me? Have you completely answered that question? What is Africa to you?
Well, you can never answer anything completely. Yes. I'm very concerned, taken with the idea of eternity and infinitude and things like that. Maybe because I'm getting older. So nothing is ever, for me, the universe is not a closed off space. My understanding is not closed off. So I'm still learning. But what is Africa to me? Well, I first went to, I can't say that I grew up being very Africa conscious. It wasn't in my learning and so on. As I say, I didn't even know that the neighbor right next door was so close to Africa, in terms of blood kinship and so on. And I myself don't know my African origins.
Do you want to find out?
Not.
I have
you have done it. The DNA
Tika
test.
From Cameroon.
Yes. I see.
Tika from Cameroon.
All right. Okay. Now I haven't yet reached to that understanding.
Okay.
But I don't mind people knowing it. But of course, for me, what I realize is each of us can't be from one ethnic group.
And we're not.
Exactly.
We're not.
Because there are so many African ethnicities that came together here.
Right.
This is another sense in which we are Creole, in that we are so intermixed.
Well, that's true, because
even
that's just
among,
one part of me anyway.
Yes, it's only one part of you. So if you might find out that I'm Hausa or Igbo or so, that's just on one line of my family, not on all.
And not for everybody, but it was important for me.
For me, yes.
I wanted to check.
Fair enough. Yes. Fair enough. So I didn't go to West Africa because of that, but because I made friends in England with some a Yoruba family, and as I said, I began learning Yoruba. And when I went back to Trinidad, my family has a connection with Nigeria. an uncle of my father had gone out to work on the Nigerian railways in the 1920s. And some of his children were born there, and so on. They're in Trinidad now, but they have to get their birth papers and so on from Nigeria. So I went out because I had a very, in certain respects, my experience of going to England had been disillusioning culturally, because I realized I was so anglicized.
You recognized England?
Yes. Yeah, I recognized England. Yes. And the people there kept asking me, how do you speak such English? And how, you know, and I knew all about their cathedrals and this and their history.
More than they knew about us.
Exactly. Yeah. I had learned Anglo-Saxon for 3 years on this campus.
Absolutely.
I knew English before English was recognizable as English. It was more German than English. So I realized that something was wrong in my cultural conditioning. And so when I had an opportunity, I went to Nigeria to teach. So I didn't go there to find myself or anything. I went to teach and to go where black people were.
Yes. So Maureen, I have to ask you this, because you couldn't have gone through that journey of, yes, you use linguistics and other media for your research. You have used history. You have come to this place. You're doing another edition of the book. We look forward to that. But the Caribbean, we talk about applied research, applied history, applied whatever. The Caribbean is caught up now in a battle for reparation. And you've been to Africa. You have seen the results on the development, but you have also seen development. In the Caribbean, you know about this battle for claiming or blaming first and then claiming redress for all of this that you have written about in your book. If you were to think about, well, I'm sure you have been thinking about it. What do you say to those who are caught up in this battle for reparation?
Well, more power to us.
Okay, all right.
Well, actually, it was some of my informants in Trinidad, the people that I interviewed. It was they who made me understand the importance of getting reparations.
So for them, it was important.
They complained about the fact that their parents and grandparents had not been given anything to start off life with.
Okay.
You know, so that's where reparations starts from for me, because reparations had nothing to do with my conditioning nor my thinking. It was talking to those old people who were near to those who had worked on the plantations and so on, and who worked for so many hours a day, who got whipped and so on and so on, and they told me, we didn't get anything, and it really is. It really is something is wrong in our history that people were sort of let free on these islands without anything to start with, and that we are still living that deficiency today.
With the legacies.
No land, no anything. We have to go. That's why even in Jamaica here, the peasants occupy all these hills and crannies, and because the estates were on the plains. So the peasants, when they got free, they had to go up into these inaccessible places, and they keep pushing further and further up. And then they want water, they want road, they want electricity.
So infrastructural development, I think, is still a yearning for so many.
Yeah.
Maureen, it was such a pleasure. I could talk to you for hours, and you could talk to me for hours, but it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for sitting with me today and rapping about Guinea's Other Sons. We look forward to the new edition. And as we go, you're a linguist at heart and by training, and you've done Yoruba and so on. I want a word. Either it says goodbye or whatever it says hello, whatever it says.
Well, I'll say to you, I want to thank you for your preparation and for your work in interviewing me. So I say I can't call you because you are younger than me. So I say,
not that much
Ku imura, that is, I greet you for your preparation.
Okay.
Oku sheo, I congratulate you for your work. And I will say to the listeners, Odabo, goodbye.
Odabo.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
Good afternoon. My name is Clinton Hutton, and I'm at the headquarters of the University Press of the West Indies with Dr. Erna Brodber. We are going to talk about her book in this year Black History Month. This book is entitled Nothing's Math, and this is the latest in a number of novels done by Dr. Brodber, and part of her publications, which goes beyond the realm of novel, but are very important documents, I think, for the reading public in general. And as a sociologist, she has brought to bear not just the discipline of sociology to her writings, but also a very keen reading and understanding of the Jamaican folk, to really establish an intellectual realm in which frees actually this esteem, this other way of looking at things, of knowing things, that is often obscured, that is often marginalized in the intellectual community. That is the philosophical tradition and cultural traditions of the folk in Jamaica and across the Caribbean. And certainly, Nothing's Math reflects Dr. Brodber's continued work in revealing truth, knowledge, and understanding to us by the way she's able to archive, to look at, to articulate the traditions of the Jamaican folk, to give meaning to something that we really ought to be looking at. And certainly, I would recommend this book, even before we start talking about it, to students of sociology, students of history, students of politics. It's a novel, but I would have I would not hesitate to recommend this book. So we're going to talk to Erna about this book. Erna, congratulations.
All right,
I mean, this book has me laughing.
Thank you.
But it is quite revealing, linking history and culture with a real community in trying to look at and to stitch together part of what people of African descent have to do in terms of remaking of a family tree. It is all of us, even if we don't do it personally, it is a concern of the African diaspora, a very central concern of the African diaspora, because it speaks to our existence and it speaks to what happened to us hundreds of years and the reason for us being here today. Right? So if you could begin by reading a section of this.
Yes, Clinton, I'll read a little bit, because when you write, you learn.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
And I think I'd like to share with you what I learned.
Sure.
All right. With Clarice, I have become one of the photograph senders in the family. She joins her cousins on the center table in the several houses in which our relatives live. But it's only Joy to whom I sent the photograph of Clarice as a bird in the Christmas pantomime. She found it remarkable enough to share with Vincent. I had not forsaken my own seer, Robert. Both men found what they saw extraordinary and felt that I had produced an exceptional medium. They were both willing to take care of her. Junior started to sound like my mother, cursing my family for its oddity, which we had inserted into his daughter. As he had to admit, nothing was happening that he didn't know about when he was gazing at me. Of course, he has no fear that she will be protected from orthodox things. He's a doctor and has friends who are physicians. There are among our very good friends many lawyers. There is help around. We have nothing to fear from temporal powers. The spiritual is something else. What I have to do is pray that she will be able to manage the spiritual legacy that is hers. My seer, whom she called and still calls Robert, not having been able to, as a baby, to say Robert, visits often and talks with her. What Maud, and in particular Clarice, went through was no stroll in the park. I can see the pain in her when she touches their part of the mat. It can be helped, Robert says, and talks her through the past experiences. Her father once listened in on these sessions. He had to admit that what he had heard was no more or less than orthodox psychotherapy. Her brother, who knows the stories well, is intelligent enough to know bloodlines and feels sorry for her sister. Mom, he says, some of these people aren't even our blood relations. How come Clarice has to feel their pain? And he's right. I let him know that he's right. For Pearl, his great-grandmother, is only Nothing's cousin, and that through her father. Their grandfather, Herbert's line, didn't pass through Maud and Clarice. They are not blood relations, and his question I'm eager to answer. For my children, given their circumstances, need to have this answer. Modibo, when our people came to this part of the world from Africa, we didn't come as blood relations. We didn't come as brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers, already knowing and loving each other. We came as individuals without family and without friends, strangers in a strange place, and like all human beings needing to love and be loved. In the absence of family, we loved anyone we could find and were grateful for the love that anybody gave us. So we have a history of loving and being loved, not because we are blood relations, but because God put us in each other's way, and we find something in each other to preserve, admire, and to care for. More than Clarissa, Nothing, and all those people in the mat love us, care for us, and want to be loved and cared for by us. They are our family, like you and Clarissa are family. Nothing is secret. When he knows the truth, he will need the explanation, Sila. What more? The little boy, my good little boy, turned to me and said, then all I can do is to help her feel and bear the pain. There and then I understood something that had been eluding me. Why would Nothing be the one to be blessed or otherwise with being able to take the shape of the bird, and not Grandma Pearl, who had a sympathetic relationship with hens, and whose death they had even taken? Simple, very simple. We feel for each other and carry each other's pain and blessing, so much so that if the designated one cannot or will not perform, we take on the task. Just so must we have cried and screamed when one of us fell beneath the lash, too weak to cry out for herself. I discovered.
Yes. This novel is in 3 parts, and one of the central characters